for coming. I have a different way that I'm going to see if you guys would just humor me on doing this spring drill planning meeting. So I know that a lot of us have voiced that they're, they want to have a good refresh on activation. How does that work? I know that we decided to have, is that David? I'm going to mute him. And I was hoping that we could do a working document, PowerPoint, that we can send out to the group of people that are going to be participating in this activation drill. I think, Neil, you brought this up before, as well as Dave and probably a lot of others, I think, on the meeting, that we want to do some training for the drill, right? Because we want the drill to be successful. So that's kind of the reason for having this planning meeting. I could put together a PowerPoint of, I've kind of been taking some classes on EOC activation and different roles and objectives and things like that. So it's going to look a little EOC. I don't mean it to be that way, but I want to kind of find a way that we can get some objectives for the drill, get some resource, requests and requirements we're going to need for the drill, and then any training that we need to have, and kind of put together a schedule of how we're going to do this. So I've never been at a drill with you guys, so I don't have past experience to go off of. Let me just start off by saying that. I know a lot of you do, so I'm hoping that that's part of what you can share. I want us to kind of do this together, not so much me telling you all what we're going to do. I want us to kind of make this a working document that's going to, do some clear, specific goals and objectives, how we're going to get to those, what we're going to use as measurable tools to be able to say, okay, this worked, this didn't. And then I'm hoping that we can just kind of expand from there. So I did a couple of slides just to start off with. Again, feel free to chime in if you think I'm ridiculous or you want something to change. That's okay. I just thought we'd start somewhere. So just to go over what I have so far is May 15th is when we have the event. We haven't specified a time yet, although I think 10 a.m. seems to work for people pretty well. Does anybody have an objection to 10 a.m.?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we've usually done them like at 9:30 or 10. That's when they usually start.
Okay. I figure if we're going to start the drill at 10, we may need to show up a little bit early. I don't know. But yeah. I think 10 is probably acceptable to kind of get things moving.
That's a Sunday, right?
Yes. Go ahead, Neil. I think it's a Sunday.
Well, I thought the week we picked was the 15th. I don't know if I'm remembering that right or not, or is this a different date?
May 15th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out that the county drill is the week after, and I don't know it didn't get the most votes, but it would let us have a combined drill. So I just wanted to bring it up.
On the 21st of May?
Let me go double check, but I believe that's true.
Unfortunately, 21st, I'm not going to be here because I have a wedding to go to.
So I believe when we did the thing, the 15th won by the most people available. I just wanted to make sure people knew we were missing the opportunity to coordinate with the county.
Which I think, I'll just throw it out here. I think we want to include the ECC in this, and I think that's a huge component of that. So I'm of the thought process that we should utilize the opportunity to do it alongside or on the same day as the county drill.
So I just double checked. It is the 21st of May.
Okay. Is there any clear, and I'm sorry, Eduardo, if we're going to mess this up for you. I apologize.
It's not going to work.
Yeah. Is there any clear objection from the group to change the date to the 21st based on that knowledge?
I would offer one comment, and that is, if we're focusing on activation of the ARC, it would seem to me to try to bring as many people to the ARC as we can. If we're doing this at the same time as they're doing staff of the EOC or county drill, won't that pull people away from our effort? My point being that I would rather try to get as many of our ECC people out to the ARC.
I guess my comment about that, Larry, is the ECC is already asking for a EOC orientation. And I'd rather have several sessions, rather than one big session where people don't have anything to do because we have 15 people in the room and we only have 3 people worth of tasks.
Okay, my comment.
How many people do we think would get pulled away? Realistically, to go from, is my thought is now, just you guys correct me if they're wrong. So again, I've not been through this. Wouldn't the ECC be the ones that would kind of cover the EOC area? And then who in the ECC do we think would be doing that to take away from our drill?
We need about 3 to 5 people to staff the EOC for a drill. And almost everyone who shows up to ECC activities are also CERT. So it's really, to a first approximation, it's a common pool of people.
So Neil, maybe we need to talk about how you see this interacting with each other. Maybe that would help the group to understand.
Yeah, that would help me a lot because I haven't done an activation since, 2015 or something.
I mean, the real thing is the EOC folks are focused on communicating with the county as well as communicating in CERT and passing information back and forth. We get to pick the scenario. Every town gets to pick. And, so we get to decide what we're going to communicate up to the county and down. And in addition, county has some, I'll call it make work, but it's really, give people something to do if they don't otherwise have something to do during the drill. So that we don't have to align the two. It's a little bit more, it exercises different components in a more end-to-end way if CERT is active at the same time as the EOC.
Because that's really what realistically, that's what we'd be doing anyway.
You could also reasonably say, I'm going to argue against myself just to present the other view, that we haven't done stuff in long enough that we really don't need to worry about an end-to-end thing. We should just worry about each one separately for a while. And then, we can worry about integrating the two after each of them have had a couple of times to practice to knock the cobwebs off. That's a very legitimate point of view also, in my view.
Okay, and then Neil.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's kind of my point of view, because it seems to me that the EOC people who show up are regularly Neil, myself, Drew, Eduardo, and Peter Evans, who's now moved away. I can't remember who else was at the last drill I went to. It's the same 4 or 5 people who are going to be needed at the ARC.
So can I throw this out there, Neil? When would be the next one that the county would have? It's twice a year, right? Or is it once a quarter?
3 times a year.
Okay. So
the next one is August 27th.
So potentially, if we decided to do our spring drill on August 27th, if we feel that we're ready, we could always pull that component in then too, right?
You said spring, but that's really late.
Oh, sorry, I meant fall.
Yeah.
Fall. Sorry, guys. Yeah, our fall drill, right? We'll do spring drill. If it looks like the group maybe lean towards that, is doing the drill on the 15th, getting our activation done. And then we could potentially schedule then the fall winter drill on August 27th. Is that the last one for the year, Neil?
There's a different thing where a field exercise in November, I think. I'm not seeing it at the moment, but it's usually the last one. Oh, it's September 17th. But that one is usually everyone goes to a common place as opposed to EOCs being open.
Okay. So I'm going to propose an yay or nay from the group that we, in light of Neil, and thank you, Neil, for explaining that to everybody, because now I'm more understanding of doing the drill on May 15th, focusing on CERT activation, and then potentially doing another drill on August 27th in conjunction with the county drill. So we can exercise the function of CERT, recon, ham, communicating to the EOC of the town, who's communicating then to county.
Okay, I am
And-
going to separately, just so everyone has a heads up, try to do a separate drill EOC focused on the 21st. People can show up or not. I realize a lot of people just did a drill a week before, and that'll be for people who want an EOC orientation.
Perfect. Great. I like that. Gives us multiple opportunities then. Okay.
Question,
Yes.
it's Barry.
Bye, Barry. How are you?
Hi, okay. I may have said this earlier, I showed up a little bit late, but the drill that we're proposing is activation and arc setup, or what is it? What beyond activation?
We haven't quite got to exactly what that's going to look like. We were kind of stuck on dates. So
Okay.
what you see up here is pretty much where we've gotten.
Okay.
So Neil was throwing out there the May 21st date because that coincides
I
with
heard
county.
that.
Yeah. Okay. You heard that part. Yeah. So I think, can I just see, so I see Bridget's hand, I saw Dave's hand, but can I just hear from the group? I just want to make sure that I don't want anyone to not have a voice on Zoom, that you're okay with keeping it May 15th, 10 a.m. And then CERT specific in terms of activation and things like that, whatever we deem we're going to be doing in that time frame.
I'm okay with that, but I would like to know from Neil, what does it look like if we activate when the EOC activates? Do we go to the ARC and do our thing and communicate with them?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll answer for Neil.
They'll be somewhere else.
Yeah, they're going to be at the Heritage House. That's where our EOC is. And Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to learn all this. So I need correction if I'm wrong. Yes, so the EOC would be activated with town staff and ECC, and we would be doing our thing at the ARC, doing our CERT recon and whatever else, tasks that we're tasked with at the time.
But I'm going to say that's mostly right. The only caveat is at the very, very earliest stage, there's a process for deciding for people who are qualified for both, whether they should go to the ARC or go to the EOC.
Copy. We have a list of those people, so we would be making that decision, whoever's available.
Mhm. Well, I can see why Neil would like that. So, but I'm game for either. I'll do as many drills as I have to get good at this because I don't have enough experience.
I think just judging from what I've seen from the group, I think going this way may be more beneficial because a lot of people have voiced that they want to go through this. It's been a long time. Some people weren't sure even where the ARC was. So I think maybe just focusing on, the activation and the setup would behoove us for this time. And it sounds like not long after that, we'll have another opportunity to do that and then do the whole thing. And then Bridget, definitely kind of the EOC one too. That way you can kind of see what the other side is going to be doing. And thank you, Neil, because I did forget about the fact that some of us are dual roles. So thank you. Okay, let's try and move on from that. So it looks like we're going to do 10 a.m. I know we talked about doing, and I know COVID stuff, but I think we talked about doing sort of like a potlucky barbecue-y thing afterwards. So should we figure out time for drill and then maybe add in some time afterwards for some social fun? So people can block off their day. Bridget says, yes, she's always my social butterfly. I love it.
Yes. And I would volunteer for a place. If that's
On what date?
May 15th. I'm just trying to make sure that we get, people blocking the day off for the work and then the fun. So should I say to 3 p.m.? Do you think that will give us enough time to do drill, put away, and then eat and drink and be merry?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start.
That's good.
Okay. I'm gonna put that with a social after the event.
You're gonna sign up the firemen to do a grill? You do that for us sometimes.
I think after we set this up, I'd also like to engage them in what they think they would want to see from us, because I think they have an idea already, but I'd like to work with them to try to talk with you guys about it. Namely, I think I brought up before, in their minds, we're the ones taking care of patients coming to the ARC. Or victims, I should say, not patients, victims. Bridget, I just signed you up for this after the social. Is that cool?
It's cool if it's okay with Bill. I'm
Okay.
sort of dragging him into this, but I think he'll do it.
Okay, just let me know if it's a negative.
We have plenty of space. It's perfect. If we don't do it, we're silly. That's all I have to say.
But I know it's kind of hard to have a bunch of people at your house. So just let me know.
I do it every month
Oh,
with tables and product out to sell stuff in scrapbook. So I'm cool with it.
okay. Well, just let us know if Bill decides that he's not cool with that. I completely
Right.
understand.
I will. I will.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for doing that. Okay, so location will be the ARC at Foothill College. Is there anything else specific? Because I'm going to be sending this out afterwards for people that couldn't make it. Is there anything else that we should put in here that you would want to know if you're considering going or not? We're going to talk about objectives and goals. We're going to talk about the resources we need, and then the training things will be in there too. Hey, what can we review? You know, what procedures are we going to go through? Because I'm sure that's going to be a question for all of us, right? And we can provide that documentation support. But is there anything else here that you would want to see on this page if I were to send it out and you couldn't come to this meeting?
I would think you'd want to have somewhere up right in front that it will, what you mean by activation at the ARC.
So that could be an objective, right? So I'm going to send out this whole PowerPoint, and then I'll probably tie like just an email with some of the specifics on here. So if someone doesn't want to look at the whole PowerPoint, they don't have to. So what would be our first objective then? Let's come up with why am I there? What am I going to be doing?
Well, on a timeline, the one thing I want to see is that we actually exercise our activation mechanisms, whether we do that with text or just forgetting the name of the various Nixle mechanisms.
Okay.
Because we used to do that on a regular basis, and we would discover regularly that somebody got left off or they didn't hear about it. So you send out email to everybody, but then you also send out a Nixle alert to the certs and see who gets it.
Hey, Dave, I buy the goal, and I think we should exercise Nixle for this. But I'd also like to, do it a couple of times before so that we're not discovering I view the May drill as the chance to do something in person, face to face, and I'd like to get as many problems out of the way beforehand as we can.
I think that's an excellent suggestion.
It's an excellent suggestion.
So that would be under resources needed to obtain goals and objectives. So we can do resources or tasks, right? So the task would be to do, and we can
to do a couple Nixle exercises and see that people are actually getting them.
Right, and it could be as easy as acknowledge over ham radio or a text that you got it.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise and Nixle. It's Nixle or ham radio, right? Ham radio functions or activation.
And the other
Whatever
pre-work,
happened.
I know I have a Nixle account from the town. I don't know who else does.
I do.
And I'd like to get identified list of people, bigger than just two of us for being able to access Nixle in an emergency.
Okay.
Dave, I don't know if you have one.
I do not, but I would
Steve, do you?
volunteer to get one.
I have one.
Did they ever change the Nixle zones to the new zone plan, or is that still
No.
TBD?
Well, so
Okay.
our little part of Nixle isn't zone-based. It's list-based.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay,
based
good.
on CERT, supervisors, hams, and I think there's one other one.
Okay, super.
So Neil, I assume there's a website where we can edit and update the people on that?
Right. And so again, I'd like to, it's not hard, but right
Yeah.
now, I don't think it's written down for certs. It's written down in the Nixle doc itself. And again, it would be nice to regularize that so many people can do it.
Yep.
So can I suggest anyone who wants Nixle access? Victoria, I'm going to volunteer you. Send Victoria a note and then she
Yes,
can
please.
take it to Deborah Padavin and try to get accounts for them all.
Yep. So for objective 1, I'm going to put utilize our activation mechanisms because that's really what we're doing. But as a task, then we're going to want to pre-exercise, right? Exercise the next little radio functions for activation. Anything else we need to put as a task to be able to exercise that? Okay. Next objective would be what? So we've alerted everybody. We've tested out our alert system prior to. What else were we looking for as an objective or goal?
Do we think we're going to have the new zones ready to go by May? It's unclear to me that, you know, if we did, then I would say that would be a reasonable exercise for a reasonable goal for the exercise is get people familiar with those new zone haven zones. But I'm not sure we can move that fast.
I don't know. I mean, Dave,
I was
you.
gonna say, what do you think is not there? I mean, Zone Haven exists, the maps exist on communityzonehaven.com. What else are you looking for?
Did they al- did they align
Having
with
maps that
district?
we can distribute to folks.
Do they
Knowing,
align with district boundaries?
updating the critical infrastructure, redoing any routes so they don't span
Oh, those
zone
maps.
haven zones, maybe.
I would
Ooh, that's
hesitate.
harder.
That's a
I
huge
know.
job.
That's a huge job. And I mean, we're already starting to work on that, right? Neil and Dave and Bruce Martin and I are on a committee to try and get that done. However, I would hate to say yes and then have that not be the case. Do you think that, I think, and I know Neil, you talked about this before, and I thought it was actually a really good idea. Maybe we do that the next on August 27th, because we'll probably have a lot of that figured out. It gives us what, 7 months, and then it could be the next phase of a goal after we put up the ARC, activate, and probably run a couple incidents.
Okay, I'm just, you know, that was one thing. The other thing is we could do Larry's idea of cell phone strength by provider.
Oh, I like that.
So is this on top of utilizing the or activating the ARC and setting everything up? That would be the next thing. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm
Make sure.
thinking instead of setting everything up. That
Huh?
that we run, you know, just recon without all the other ARC stations.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so not setting everything up.
I would like to set everything. I think it's been so long since we set everything up and did something real. I don't know.
Okay, anyone else have either alternate suggestions or a vote between at least the two things on the table?
Would it
I
be
think
possible to do both? Setting up actually, well, okay, let's back up. Setting up should take what, maybe a half an hour?
Always seems to take longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you 45 minutes, even an hour. The real point that I've been realizing, at least when I sat down trying to figure out what next, is it's been an awful long time since I've heard any really detailed description of how any of the various positions presently operate. I know Neil and Dave have been working hard on connecting recon to operations, but I don't know that that's been written down in a way that somebody who's never done this would quickly pick up and say, oh, I see this checklist, I'll just do it.
Dave, I see you grinning. Do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it because we're never happy with it after we've done it. And it's always sort of a cluster, you know what. Where I was kind of going with it was, you know, not clear what we really need to exercise most, whether it's, I think there's sort of this process of processing people through the ARC, which is they show up, we do the check-in, staging, and then send them out to do something. And that's sort of the core of it that we know we're going to need no matter what the emergency is. And then the other half of it was the recon aspect and that communication back and forth. I was trying to figure out if there's a mini version of that, you know, like, can we avoid setting up medical? Can we avoid setting up the IT? Can we just focus on check-in, staging, recon, and just quickly pass people through? You know, maybe something like that is the right answer.
Well, first of all, Larry, have you looked at the currently published position descriptions that are in the CERT website?
I was trying to find them at the CERT website, but I somehow pushed the wrong buttons because I did not see an up-to-date version of, or could not find for that matter. Those are now on the Google's Drive or on the CERT website.
It should be on the CERT website.
Gee, I didn't find them.
I just pasted the link in. But
Okay,
it's in the procedures tab. And the first link there is LAH CERT position guide.
all right. Well, yeah, this is what I was thinking. That this is on the Google's. All right, enough said. No, I haven't looked at them. I would like to. What I would like to add, and what I just heard Dave saying, and the concept about the phone is, we could do the process of recon dispatch and have their responses. It would be a very useful thing to have recon signal strength at the same time we get telephone signal strength or absence thereof in certain specific areas of the town, particularly Hidden Village.
Larry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
I just feel like we always run out of time when we try to do stuff because everything takes longer than we estimate.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I'm going to propose, if we want to set up the ARC, and given the number of people who are likely to show up, which I'm going to guess is around 15 to 20, why don't we embrace doing things at the ARC and have little trainings at each of the positions?
That's exactly what I was going to say, Neil.
And, you know, we can have copies of the position guide to hand out. We can have people who are trained in that position to describe it to the new folks. And we can treat it like a training opportunity, really focusing on running the ARC, all of the parts for both the new and the old people. And I believe we can easily fill 2 hours doing that.
Yeah, I'm liking that.
Yep, I was going to say, we can have people sign up for positions, and then we can exercise the ARC functions, set it up and exercise the functions and roles.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Exercise ARC, I don't like how I wrote that. Exercise
ARC operations.
operational roles. How's that?
Yeah.
I guess the part,
I guess
exercises may
a
be
little
it.
bit.
I was actually thinking about training at each station is, to me, the key thing we're going to go do.
So how do you want me to say this objective so that it makes sense?
Training for the ARC roles.
Because remember, these objectives I'm going to be putting onto my activation spreadsheet. So I have to kind of say what we're going to be doing. And usually they want to see us either review an exercise of ARC functional roles or something like that, right?
Well, I don't know if this is too
Exercising it.
specific, but I would say, you know, rotate all participants through all leadership positions.
Okay, I'm going to do this. And then objective 3 is, say that again. Sorry, now I'm getting tired. Okay, say that again. Sorry, Neil.
This might not be objective, this might be tactic, but, you know, rotate all participants through all the ARC positions.
Well, it's a goal, right? So
If that's the goal, in the past, we would have used a monthly meeting or something to walk through these things before a drill. Right?
good point. Good point. Yep. Yeah, so I think part of what we're going to do now is now we have our objectives and goals set, and we're going to start going, okay, what do we need to get to those objectives and goals? And the part of that, Barry, is having some planning meetings, right? Some training meetings to go along with the drill. And that was what I think we discussed at the first one. Yeah. So thank you for that. And that is exactly where I think we should go. But again, I want you guys to come up with what you want, but that makes sense to me. And I think it's something that Neil and the rest of us brought up at the first meeting. So participant roles, is that what I was supposed to put, Neil? Sorry. Assigned
Leadership roles.
Did you get what Eduardo said?
No, it was kind of scratchy. Say that again, Eduardo.
Leadership roles.
Rotate all
Leadership roles.
Okay.
Oh, so leadership roles, are those supervisors, or are we talking about everybody? Because
Do you mean for who's going to do the training, or where people are going to rotate through?
Yeah, they're going to rotate through what?
Barry, I didn't get your question.
For someone to run a station, we used to make that for supervisors and then take non-supervisors. I don't know how many non-supervisors we have, but through they would be a supervisor there that would explain the station, help give people things to do, etc. Right.
So I think I'm agreeing with both sides of what you're saying. We need someone who knows the role to describe it. And we're going to cycle everyone through all of the stations, or, unless they're manning a station.
But without particular, are we running a drill? As in, here's, an event, pretend event that comes on, goes to the scribe board, etc. Or
I just don't think we'll have time if we're going to aim for a 2-hour drill.
So we're they're walking to each station. Actually, we've done this before, and somebody there explains what the station is. And then the timer expires as they go to the next station. Is that what we're talking about?
That's what I'm proposing.
At most, you want to have sort of a sample incident or two to explain what you're doing, but trying to actually run incidents through the thing, I don't think that's going to work.
That's the fall drill, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how does that look? Rotate participants through ARC operational stations as a role review, time stations with a scenario example.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll be possible to have fake traffic for each of the stations as opposed to trying to model an actual incident?
I think you can do some samples for most of that.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know what you mean by actual incident in that sense.
Well, I mean, if you have someone taking phone calls and writing up reports and sending them to the right people, the right groups, and having them respond to them and send their stuff on to the next in the chain of command, modeling an actual incident is different from trying to get each station working, having the kind of traffic that each station would have, so that you're not waiting for something to happen on radio.
To add to that, you might have, as though somebody's coming into the middle of an incident, there's a bunch of things kind of already in progress, and then you're explaining each station with a bunch of things that are in progress. For that, we might need victims and other things, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think, Steve, that's a good follow-up for the next time that I think right now people just some people haven't even been to the ARC to see it even set up, and they still are curious about the roles and want a review of those. So my suggestion is to keep what we're doing, and then the next objectives and goals for the fall drill would be something along the lines of what you're saying, to exercise.
I mean, I remember the last drill that I was in the part where people would come in and wait for a position that they can go out on the road or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there was basically nothing to do for a couple hours because all the action was happening in the other departments.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want someone to know what to do in that station, it might be good to have just what happens at that station. You get these requests in, you get these people in, and then you would pretend to send them off to the other, wherever they're supposed to go. So
So
you model
you're
each
proposing a-
station.
Yeah, you're proposing to do a run through exercise with a couple of incidents in a role that either you choose or we have an open space for that we put you in and exercise that adjunct or scenario. Is that what you're kind of putting out there?
Well, I mean, you want people to rotate through each station, but some of the stations just don't have anything to do. But so I'm proposing that you would have people go to one of these stations and you have what kind of traffic you would expect to have during an incident, but not necessarily coordinate them with the other stations.
Steve,
Yeah,
can I echo back what I think you're saying?
Sure.
Just to make sure I have it right. So if you were at not staffing,
Staging.
sorry, staging, right? They would show, here's the paperwork I would have gotten for the 3 requests, and this is how I would send people out if you were at staging, and here's the other kinds of things I would do. So it's not so much that you're simulating traffic coming in, you're showing a partially running station.
Right.
You have something to demonstrate.
Right. Because staging has to wait until someone out in the field finds a fire or something where we have to respond, or we have to know that we want to send somebody out to a certain area.
Yep. So I think that's a good suggestion personally. And I think what we should probably find is a leader for each of the stations, and we can come up either a common scenario or separate scenarios and show, what partial paperwork or, a snapshot paperwork would look like at each of those stations.
Yeah. That way everybody gets trained and you're not waiting for the other stations to produce something you have to act on.
Right.
Yeah.
You can reuse that same stuff for each group that comes by.
Yeah.
One suggestion I would put in is the possibility of actually having poster boards or something of that sort. For instance, at staging, there would be requests, for instance, recon requests, and a list of what happens if there is such a request. And then also requests from operations. And then do this at recon and operations and so forth. So that when people are standing there listening, they also see things that they can register more than one way, if you will. And the other I would add is actually talk them through what it would have meant to have evaluated your team in, for instance, staging, and assessing who would be good to go out in the field, who would be good to go to recon and so forth.
So this would be things that I see us doing at the next planning meeting, is getting into the weeds of what how we really want to run the drill. So try to remember that, Larry, because I'm just trying to get a general idea of what we want to do, and then we're going to get in the weeds with it. And I think that would be a perfect, like, if you're running the recon station, then you would be the one that would be coming up with the ideas of what you need as resources to be able to do this drill. Does that make sense, hopefully?
Yeah, that's fine.
Does to me.
Okay, because I'm just trying to make it so that people that weren't at the meeting kind of have an idea of what we want to do and the tasks associated with it. And then our next meeting would be really taking each of the objectives, the resources, and getting even more into that, into what we really need to function with each of the stations.
Victoria, can we sign up station leads before that point so that they can actually bring something to that next meeting?
Yeah, so that was going to be my sort of, next thing is what do we need upcoming to do for the next meeting, right? Upcoming tasks for next meeting. So I think that's what we need to do, is have people pick what station they would like to be at. Oops, hello. I'm trying to do a PowerPoint this late at night. Okay, wait, insert text box.
I have a slight modification. What we've done in the past is had a soup meeting, if you will, where we walk through all the positions, especially now that we have a new formulation for them. And we just talk about them as a group, and then that might be a good time to take volunteers. But everybody walks through all the positions. Then if somebody doesn't make it or something, then, or it would be like an arc where the first person available gets stuck in that position.
But Barry, do you, at least I'm going to say it this way.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that meeting be more productive if we had a starting position for all the positions rather than try to brainstorm it all together?
I'm talking about a soup meeting before the drill, right?
Right, but
Where we,
at that soup
where,
meeting, if people bring, a proposal for what to train at that thing, irrespective of who's actually going to go give it.
I see it. I see you're training each one. Didn't think there was much training involved as opposed to just describing what happens in that station. They of course need to know that material, but hopefully when I get refreshed, we everybody, most supers in the old days knew all the positions, right? I'm very rusty. I know that. I don't know about everybody else, but right,
Yeah, I think
that was what
everybody is.
Yeah,
that was
everyone's
the expectation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's what we're kind of looking at with going over. I must have
Yeah.
misunderstood. I thought we were talking about, but we've changed it now. But yes, I agree with you. We need to kind of figure out how we're going to train, educate everybody. I think my suggestion, and I agree, is to pre-assign the tasks or the roles, and then if you're assigned a certain role, then we'll give you the
I'm
information.
with your ideas. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I'd be more than happy to do, I think I've
That works.
recorded some role reviews. I did that last year, right over COVID. Didn't I start? I think Denise started it, and then the year before. When COVID started, we had meetings, and I went over every single one of the roles of the ARC. But again, that was 2 years ago, and I don't know about you guys, but my brain cells many have died since then. So I think I recorded them, but I'm not sure. If I find them, I can put them out too, so people could watch. But we'll definitely be sending out the roles what's that document called, Neil? I'm sorry. Is it ARC roles or something that you created, the doc that has all the descriptions? What's it actually called?
Position description.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Okay. So
I'm sorry, I'm looking at it right now. It's LAH CERT Position Guide.
While she's typing that, I'd like to ask one other item. I think if we are having our specific people at these various stations, those people who are briefings, for instance, staging, ought to figure out a way that they get a chance to see how it's done at the other stations, because all of us should have cross training. It shouldn't be just that we know very well what we do. We should have at least a working knowledge of how all the stations work. Now, my question would be, would that be a practice, something we do ahead of time and actually focus our own training people on going around to the different locations so all of us know what's going on?
well, why don't we go as a group? And maybe I'm putting too much thought into this, but let's just say that Neil's medical, Dave is ops, I'm staging. We could schedule it so that each of those people that are responsible for those stations does a quick review of the station, and maybe we can put into play their role as an incident. Like we'll say there was I don't know, I'm just talking mess here. You guys just, tell me if it doesn't make any sense. But let's say, okay, it's after an earthquake. And then we use that scenario, and then each of the people that sign up for these station roles, as a group, we go through and that person talks about that station to the group. That way everyone gets a chance.
That's in the meeting beforehand, you're saying, right?
No, at the actual drill. So at the meeting before, we're going to have multiple meetings beforehand, Barry. Like I think the next one's going to be kind of getting more into the nitty gritty, right? We'll have another planning meeting and probably another planning meeting just to make sure we got everything covered. But I think when we actually have the drill, and are you saying, Larry, you want to have a face-to-face looking at the station and having that person who's responsible for that station talk about their role during the activation?
I think it's one that we should work out as we get closer, but I know from my point of view that you find yourself in the 2 hours or so we're working, that there's a crowd of people going around, but you don't get to be part of the crowd of people. And so I'm just suggesting that we do at least some way, possibly, it doesn't have to be at the Ark looking at specific things at the Ark. It might just be an evening like we're talking right now. But that there, you go through the guts of what you actually deal with. I know an awful lot about how recon works. I know very little, for instance, about operations and how they handle the details. I know generalities, but not details.
So I am going to propose, because I feel like there's people who probably would appreciate a review of the positions again. I'm going to propose that I do a separate meeting night and go over those prior to our next meeting, and prior to sending out a spreadsheet for station roles, so that we give everybody a chance to look at all the roles and decide what they want to drill on, what role they are interested in doing. And then I also propose during our drill that we activate, we set up the Ark, and then we go as a group to each of the stations, and the people responsible for those stations, let's say, Larry, you are recon, right? So we'll schedule it. So we start with recon or staging or where we're going to start with that role at that station, that person presents to the whole entire group. Then we all move on to the next station, which is medical, and Neil's with the group, and he's going to go have his stuff set up prior to, and then Neil talks about medical and what their role is there, and we go around as a group. Is that something that you think will satisfy the need that people have of reviewing roles? Because you're not the only people that have brought that up. That was brought up on some surveys too. And then also give us a chance to participate in all the different stations during the drill, and people aren't going to be standing around twiddling their thumbs. What do you guys think of that?
I think having everyone in one big group really lowers the ability to ask questions. And, we have a lot of stations, and if we're only doing 10 minutes each and there's 20 people at each station, right? You won't be, only 1 or 2 people will be able to ask questions, maybe 3 or 4. And so to me, that's the advantage of having small groups rather than one giant group.
So what is the way we can get all these objectives done? How can we do that?
So what I would say is, if we're really worried about the presenters being able to learn all the ones, let's have a different, it could even be virtual meeting for the, people organizing, and not try to have them learn it at the same time as the regular certs, if you like.
Okay, so kind of what I said before, I can set that up, or we go over the roles. They won't be a face-to-face, but I can do that virtually in between the time of now and our next meeting to do the drill planning. Would that be sufficient? And we can go over the roles, kind of like I talked about before. Do you think that would satisfy the need for people to want to talk about the roles again?
But I'm going to just observe that, if we're having a common meeting to go over what everyone's going to go present, that's naturally your familiarization.
I agree with that. So, but we're talking, so if we have a meeting, we have your volunteers for the drill. Each volunteer says what they're going to do in that environment or in the drill. That'll kind of cover the role, and plus ideas of how to make it interesting. So then we all hear that together. That's a refresher, and then we can give some feedback on things. Is that where you're going, Neil? Or
Yes, that's exactly what I think would kind of naturally come out, and still let us have little groups at the hands-on.
Yeah. Okay. Did you follow, Victoria? Sorry.
No, I didn't. I think it's just my brain. It's not anybody else.
No. So it goes back to your original idea, I think, with get volunteers. Those volunteers come to the meeting with ideas on how they want to describe the role at the event, which is, hopefully not just reading the position document, and there's other ideas thrown out by others to make it interesting. But the, and then if we come to a meeting together, each volunteer talks about what they think they're going to do to make the exercise interesting and how they're going to explain the role. Then we all hear each other's ideas and we refresh ourselves on the role.
Okay. Is that written out to make sense, hopefully?
Victoria, you're not,
Each
are you
volunteer,
sharing?
yeah.
I was. Hold on.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you
no,
were.
it's when it went away.
You were.
Can you see that upcoming task for
Yes.
next meeting?
Now I can. I'm sorry. I was just
Yeah.
looking at the wrong screen.
That's all right. It's been a while, so I might have just decided not to share.
In front of come to the meeting, say each volunteer comes to the meeting with ideas. Right, and that on that station. Right, you're giving out station roles, but it's the volunteer for the station role that's gonna come up with the idea.
With ideas for the event on how to engage participants.
Yep.
I'll make it look better when I'm more awake. Okay. So let's go back to here. I want to make sure I have this right. So we should change this, right? Or is that still valid? Rotate participants through ARC operational stations as a role review.
I think we're doing that.
Time stations with a scenario example. Is that still valid?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
So we probably, I don't know if we want to pick a subset. We have 15 named positions.
Yeah.
Wow.
14,
Yep,
I
we
guess.
do.
The first
14,
is,
yeah.
so some we could probably leave out, like spontaneous volunteer and redemption. But even 12 is at 10 minutes a thing, 2 hours. And which, is not unreasonable, for how long we could do it. But I'm wondering, I think it is unreasonable for dividing us up into 12 groups because there'll only be 1 or 2 people in each group.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I would say focus on the things that an ordinary CERT person would run into, which would be check-in, staging, recon, or operations with recon. And I'd say leave medical off altogether. I don't know that IC and scribe kind of functions really matter a lot to the people who are out in the field.
Well, I was going to argue we could combine scribe, IT, and planning and kind of cover them all at once because they're different aspects of the same thing.
Yeah, I like that idea.
scribe, planning, and IT. You said?
DMOB is typically not a position. It's activities that have to be done.
Correct. Isn't donations on there?
There's redemption and redemption, which I think is donations.
Mm,
And then I think we should remove that.
thank
Anyway,
you.
we can do it offline, but I think if we combine and take off the ones that are second tier, I think we can get it down to a more reasonable number of 6 to 8.
How's that?
Do we have a guess how many non-trainers we will have at this?
Well, history says we'll get 15 to 20.
Yep, I agree. And most of them are
Okay.
going to be CERT supervisors. I would say probably 12 to 15 will be.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we don't chew up everybody in training.
Oh, I am going to invite the teen certs. So there you go. That would be a really good educational event for them. All right, so how does this look for the first go? I'm going to work on that a little more. I think I can add some more things for that, but an upcoming task for next meeting. Did I go too fast?
When do you plan the next meeting?
Good question, Larry Carr. I was just going to say, should we give ourselves a time frame for that? Because we're going to want to tell people, hey, take a look at these positions. We're going to create the spreadsheet and give people idea or time to engage, figure out how they're going to engage their participants. I say a month. Is that too long?
I think so, given,
Yeah,
there's not a lot to do between now and the next meeting.
yeah, I think you want to also get momentum rolling here.
Okay, so let's figure out when we want to have our next meeting. So you want to do 2 weeks?
2 weeks is the 9th.
I think that's a good distance, good
Okay.
time.
Works for me.
Not for me.
Okay.
Question would be, at one point, we used to have a CERT supervisor meeting once a month, and in between, we would have a general CERT meeting. I know we're not doing it every other 2 weeks, but will there be a general CERT meeting somewhere in this process?
It's completely up to you guys, because we talked about that at the beginning, that, I wanted to let you guys determine how you wanted to do that.
Well, it might be useful to get feedback from the general community after they've been exposed a bit to this process, so we answer questions or get ideas from them.
So should we do that before this February 9th meeting or after it?
My opinion would be after it, because we don't have anything to say yet.
That's what I was thinking, but I just want to make sure I wasn't off the mark. I can set up a general meeting then
Well, ask the group whether they agree, but that was my general question.
I agree with you, if that matters.
That's all that's important.
That's important.
Let's do this, a show of hands who thinks that we should do a general meeting, which I agree with 100%. A couple, maybe a week or two after the next meeting, to share with the group, the larger group, kind of what we're doing and try to hook them in.
It might be useful to see what comes out of our presently planned February 9th meeting, because to some extent that will define what we would be inviting people to come listen to. Let's get our ducks in a row before we open the gate. That would be my suggestion.
I agree. So
Yeah, agree.
So looking at that, do you think maybe we should do like February 23rd? That way we give ourselves extra time, because, if we come back to the meeting on the 9th and we're still kind of working some stuff out, we could potentially meet again a week later and then get our stuff together for the meeting on the 23rd for the general population of CERT.
That's fair. That's fair.
Does that work for everybody?
That's fair.
Not me.
That's fine.
Sorry, Wednesday's not good for me this time of year.
Oh, no.
The 9th and the 23rd, I can't do either.
Okay,
Actually,
well,
there's probably only those days.
okay.
Um,
So what
16th is okay. 2nd is okay.
geez, it's just those two, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
I will do this, Christine. I'm going to be sending out the recordings and the PowerPoint as we keep on working on it.
That would probably
So,
be fine.
is that okay for you to
Yeah.
maybe watch it virtually?
As long as you don't sign me up for a bunch of volunteer roles, I can't defend myself.
So this March 2nd is the COVID seminar.
Yes. That's correct. So that's why I was thinking if we do February 23rd for the general meeting, then we would still have March 2nd open.
My suggestion would be to wait a bit longer even than that.
Oh, okay.
Would suggest that we get a chance to I think we want to be closer to the actual time of the event, that we say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. This is how we've laid it out. Are we missing anything? Would be sometime in late March or early April if we're going to be doing this in mid-May. That's gives both the audience and us a chance to make sure that we know what we're doing and still not be so early that they forget that we said we were going to do something.
So do we want to look at mid-March then? Is that still too early?
I'll leave that to the group.
Show of hands who thinks that we should do mid-March. Is there anyone that objects to that, thinking we won't be ready? I think we will. I say we put that down as our next meeting, and if we have to finagle that around, we have to finagle it around.
Deadlines are good. They make you do things.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Okay, it's going on the PowerPoint, people. Okay. General meeting to discuss real specifics.
March 19th.
March 19th. Did I say? Oh, no.
Saturday.
No, this is what we're doing. There we go. Sorry, typo. Okay. Well, we've sucked up an hour. Is there anything else for right now that we need to take care of? I can send out do you want to do it, Neil? Will you send it out? The CERT position guide?
It's pasted in the chat, but I can email it.
Oh, perfect. Oh, I see. There's lots of chat stuff. Okay. Sorry, I'll download the chat so I have it. So just so I can clarify, is this LA8 CERT position guide going to the whole LA8 CERT group, or are we just doing CERT supervisors?
I thought what we were doing was we're going to call it supervisors for a meeting and invites, but we're going to mail the general CERT group so that people who want to see it can know it.
Perfect. So,
I mean, that's what we've been doing, right? I'm not trying to change policy.
Yeah, that's what I would think too, is that, we're driving it towards people who are going to be training or attending, but it's always open to everybody.
okay, so I can send out to the whole entire group saying, this is a position guide for review. We're looking for station role volunteers. Did I get that wrong again?
No, that's good.
Okay.
And I pasted into chat my proposal, all of 2 minutes of thinking of how to combine positions to get a shorter list.
Are the slashes between positions or combining positions?
So, one training group would do ops and recon, one station. And another one would do comm and logistics.
Okay, so the slashes indicate that that's a join as opposed to separation. It wasn't clear the way it's word wrapped on my chat screen.
Can I make one suggestion? I think ops and recon are two very large roles. Can we do them separate? I know we're trying to cut down on time, and I'm hearing that too. That's a lot of.
So we can do whatever we want. The reason why I combined them is they basically share paperwork. Most of it is one side sending it to the other side.
I would say that I would push for separate, mostly because, yes, you're right about the paperwork being shared, but there's a lot of detail, certainly in the recon staffing and procedures, that I would like to be in a position to have at least exposed people. And they're enough different than operations that I think it would be hard to do it in a 10-minute or 15-minute presentation.
Well, this kind of begs the question of what's the purpose of the training?
Yes,
Um,
and that's my next question.
and I think you and I are reflecting, I think, under the covers, two different assumptions. And I'm going to say it out loud so that, people can chime in. I think you're assuming you are now ready to run the position after you've gone through this training. And I'm viewing it as you're ready to be an assistant. You have a general overview without necessarily, enough knowledge to actually do it on yourself, because to be that latter, you would need tabletops and, other things.
You're right. We have we've targeted it from two different directions. And I was indeed working from the idea that I would have wanted to introduce sufficient detail that people who came in would be able to take on the job. I would ask what the general group thinks, because these are both valid approaches, and I don't. Neil and I have seen it from two different directions. What's the rest of the group think?
Wow, there's a lot of going back and forth with this one.
Sorry, I have an opinion, but I'm multitasking dinner and throwing balls for dogs on this meeting. I'm kind of with Neil on this. I think, what we want is a script that says this is what happens and this is how it works. But not so much that you could really walk away and, be, quote, fully trained, unquote, to run the station.
I agree. I agree too. I just, even as an overview, I think ops and recon to me are two bigger roles, but that's okay. That's just my opinion. And if the rest of us feel like we're going to go for it, I say go for it.
And I think for the rank and file certs, the ops recon thing looks like one set of functions. And the reason it isn't really is because recon has a bunch of coordinated tracking that they need to do with people who are out on recon.
Right. I just think even doing an overview in 15 minutes for both those roles is maybe pushing it, but that's okay. We'll try it. Why not? I mean, they're not going to, as we said, we're not thinking they're going to walk away being, the end all be all leaders of each of these teams after they get their overview. Right. So
can I suggest for all of these, not just those two, the proof is going to be when we have the materials and the dry run materials,
Exactly.
the dry run through it. It's either glossing over too much or taking too long, or perfect as it is. And then we can split.
I agree. I was going to just say that we can see how it looks once we get ourselves kind of more situated. Okay. Awesome.
One further comment, and that is that we need to make sure to allow time for questions. And 15 minutes, that's pretty tight scheduling. I don't object to the idea of all I'm saying is that reduces the detail that you can afford to take the time to talk about. Just keep that in mind.
So that brings us back to which I think someone suggested. Do we need to set up the whole arc then? Should we take time just setting up the tables and just having the station areas, but not the canopies and not all the stuff that goes with it? Just the vest and the paperwork bins and give ourselves more time? Just a thought.
That's what we typically did for drills anyway. We only did canopies if we needed them for some reason.
Okay. So I think with that being the case, it shouldn't really take us more than 30 minutes to set up. Now, again, we have to have a briefing, right? And go over kind of what we're looking for the drill. But, we might be able to buy some more time, but I think piggybacking off what Neil says, once we come back with kind of what we're going to be presenting and engaging with the participants, we'll have a better idea of the timing. And we can always set that timing schedule after we've gone through all of that. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I will handle putting out the email with the positions, and should I do Google spreadsheet for the signups?
I think there should be something that everyone can look at, whatever you do. I would personally have people send you emails so you can, pick and choose and reorder.
Or do it as a Google survey. My name is, I volunteer for this and this or this.
Did you say that you're going to do that, Dave? That's so sweet of you. Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
So nice of me.
It's so sweet of you to be voluntold to do that. Aw.
Okay, I voluntold.
You're the best. Thanks, Dave Stewart. Yeah, if you could help me with that, that'd be fabulous. And then
Okay.
let me know when you get that done, and I'll send everything out in one fell swoop. I know people were really wanting to come, and yeah, so thank you. I think we've fried our brains enough over this. Good job, everybody, for letting us know your thoughts. Sam and Shell and if you guys have anything that you didn't have a chance to talk through, just shoot me an email. I'm glad you all came. Thank you very much, as always. And Amita too. Did you have anything to say, Amita? You've been so quiet.
No, I'm just observing and listening, and everyone's ideas and suggestions sound great.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm gonna make this look prettier, not tonight. I'll do it tomorrow if you guys are okay with that. And then Dave, I'll give you time to sleep in and work on this if you can.
Okay. So are we happy with Neil's selections here? Because I'm gonna cut and paste them and use those as the volunteer opportunities.
Yep, let's go for it.
Okay. If anyone has an objection, send me an email.
Cool. Okay. Look for this tomorrow at some point. And yeah, Dave, are you going to be around tomorrow afternoon by any chance?
Let me double check, but the answer is probably.
Can I come by and we social distance outside, and you can show me how to work this darn thing?
Which, oh, your
Surface.
yeah, your Surface, sure.
Yeah.
You might want to start with that page I linked, because
Yeah.
it seemed to say exactly how to do it.
Oh, okay. But maybe he can tell me how to turn the darn thing on and off and all that. There's all these buttons that I keep pressing, and it goes blank and it turns off, and it's really frustrating.
I
I'm
haven't
sorry.
turned mine on in 2 or 3 years now, so it'll be the blind leading the blind, but it'll be fun.
All right, well, let's do this. I will look at it first, Neil. Thank you. And then if I need you, Dave, I will hit you up. How does that sound?
That's fine. I should be around all day.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go click on this real quick before it goes bye-bye. Let's see. There we go. Nope, that's not it. How do I switch my camera? Okay. Well, we will adjourn. If anyone has anything else to say, I appreciate all of you as always. Thank you again. And we will sign off.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.